Hey everybody, Stu Smith here, going live. Going to be doing some CSS critiques, taking some questions. But first, I can't even start the day without remembering what today is. June 28th is a tough day in Spec War history for both the Army and the Navy. Navy SEALs were lost in Operation Red Wings, and the Army helicopters that were also involved and their crew as well, the Army Night Stalkers. Rough day. So never forget those guys. If you want to look at all the names, I mean, this was a bad day. Um, Operation Red Wings. That's where we get the Murph from, the Murph Memorial Workout from Michael Murphy, who was awarded the Medal of Honor in that one. Also, the Lone Survival, Marcus Luttrell and his story. So, never forgotten. So, take a moment, give them a round of your time for a second. Um, all right. So, today was an interesting morning. We had a workout scheduled, and it is a leg day. And often in our leg days during the summer, in our calisthenics cardio cycle, it is more of a run hill day mixed with some goal paced intervals, some fireman carries, squats and lunges, hills, all that stuff. And depending on how many hills you run, you can accumulate anywhere at a minimum from 5 miles just running to and from the hill. And then every hill you do adds a half mile to your total. And we typically get anywhere between 6 and 10 miles of running, depending on, once again, how many hills you run. So this morning, that was not the plan. The plan is this week is that fourth week in our block periodization model that you guys have heard me talk about. Spring training, 3 weeks of calisthenics, 1 week of lift. So the plan was get in some lifts. We were going to do deadlifts, a lot of kettlebells, some fireman carries, farmer walks, um, kettlebell swings, things like that, and short runs like 800s, goal pace. Maybe you only get about 2 or 3 miles total today, and then go swim with fins. However, there's a group that asked me, "Hey Stu, do you mind if we go and um, do you mind if we go run the hill?" I'm like, "No, not at all." Now, every one of these guys, just about to the person, was a much better lifter than they were runner. So a couple of them were college football players, really honestly didn't need to lift. And they know their weakness is running. And they have gotten that weakness into a much less of a weakness and are able to hit 6, 7 miles at a 7 minute mile pace. They definitely do their 4 mile timed runs in under 28. Um, running hills, they run 10 hills, which is just 5 miles of hills, 2.5 up, 2.5 down. They tend to walk, slow jog down. Um, but yeah, and then the skinnier guys all lifted, which I thought was perfect because I don't know how many times I say this and write this is that your weaknesses will be exposed within your first few days of selection, if not the first day. In fact, I'm going to put a link in there to this article because it's a good one. You have to be honest with yourself. You have to assess yourself and say, you know what? I hate running, but I'm not good at running. So I need to practice running. That could be on the backside of it with the non-impact activities like swimming or treading. I think I'm good at treading, but I don't really know. Well, get in the water, see if you can tread for 10 minutes without your hands. That'll tell you real quick if you're good at treading or not. So anyway, that is what today was. Today was one of those days where half the group went to run hills, half the group went to lift, and it was completely created by the students themselves. Not me saying, you're a big guy, you don't need to be lifting, you need to go run. You're a little guy, take off your running shoes and let's go lift. So that was nice. It appears that me talking about focus on your weakness is sinking in. So that's here locally. Hopefully, it's sinking in with you guys as well, because your weaknesses will be exposed as soon as you show up. I promise you. Thanks for the Sandbag Murph. Rod says my time got way better over the past few weeks. Nice work. I love the Sandbag Murph. If you're not familiar with the Sandbag Murph, it is basically similar to the Murph, just with a sandbag. And all the different exercises that you do are basically log PT activities. So, like in the Murph, it's 100 pull ups, 200 push ups, 300 squats, run a mile on the front and back. With the Sandbag Murph, you can still add, 100 pull ups in there, but you need to add 100 push presses with a 50-pound, 40 to 50-pound sandbag or log if you have one. You have chest carry lunges for 100 per leg. You have shoulder carry squats for 150. Yeah, I think it's 150. And then you have sit ups, chest carry sit ups for 150. And if you put those numbers together, it's kind of like the still 100, 200, 300, but it's a 100, 200, 100 per leg. 300 split with the 150 on each side. So it's similar to the Murph. I want to give Murph credit on that one, just because it is now what we used to call max rep set workouts, where you do 100, 200, 300 in as few sets as possible. We now tend to call them the Murph. And unfortunately, largely due to today, which is June 28th, the day Michael Murphy passed, and several others. So I think it's great that we can never forget him, and he is, and the others, by memorialize them in these hero workouts. All right. So if you have some questions, send them. If you don't, that's fine too. I'm going to share a few. I'm going to share a few swim videos, and let me turn the volume down. That's interfering with my brain. Put pause on this, and what we will do is go through a process of looking at these videos, and I'll explain to you how I critique them. All right. So first of all, the first part of the critique is this kick off the wall, right? How streamlined are you? Right? When you kick off this wall, you want to use those legs like you are trying to jump up and grab the rim of a basketball goal, but you are doing it horizontally in the water. And the trick to it is to be streamlined and to jump hard. As you can see here, these elbows could be a lot tighter. Like his bicep should be touching his ears. So I would say this is not as streamlined as it could be. Okay, then we talk about, okay, see all these little extra flutter kicks? You don't need to do that. Just use the wall and relax for a few seconds. This is a moment when you don't have to move at all, waste any energy, and just use that wall for about 5 to 6 seconds, being underwater, moving. Yes, you'll probably have to throw in a double arm pull like this, which isn't bad. Not a horrible double arm pull, could be better. Needs to look up breaststroke pullout is the term where you will really see how people grab water, pull it, and push it down, and then hold the glide for a second. Here's the problem, though. He's constantly flutter kicking here. Then watch this. He does it again, right? So what are you doing? Are you swimming the CSS or are you trying to do underwater swimming? Either one, it's wrong because if you're doing underwater swimming, all these extra flutter kicks will make you winded and you probably won't even get 25 yards typically because you'll be so winded from doing these flutter kicks that you just can't do it. So first of all, only do one breaststroke pullout, not two. In fact, you're going to have to probably learn how to get away with not doing it as well because there are some instructors that won't allow it whenever you are taking this test. So just kick off the wall, hold the glide as long as you can, start the stroke, or if you can make this transition out of the breaststroke pullout into the stroke, great, take advantage of it. But here's the problem. Whenever he does that, look at that. He comes up and he is pretty much stopped. This is not where you breathe when you transition out of the breaststroke pullout. What you want to do is you want to kick and recover. So after you do the breaststroke pullout, you want to kick and recover underwater, then start your stroke with the first breath being after the top arm pull. If you do it this way, you are guaranteed to stop all momentum created off the wall. Boom. Right there. Now he has to create all this momentum again. And if you can see here, top arm, bottom arm, kick, top arm, bottom arm, kick. Yeah, it's a little bit awkward. So, one, the kick's too big. Needs to work. What he needs to do is Google the term "fix my kick." Um, CSS help fix your kick. In fact, I'll put it in the um, I'll put it in the comment section over there. His kick's a little too big. It's when you go out that wide, it's almost like it stops you in your tracks, and then you get a little bit of momentum, but he could be a little more streamlined. Um, he doesn't have his biceps on his ears and holding that streamline out that. In fact, he looks almost bent over like this. So, he's going to have this constant tendency to, run into the lane line. If he was in open water in this position, he'd probably swim in a big circle in about 5 minutes. That bottom arm's a little bit too big, needs to be more like a breaststroke scull. So there's a lot going on with this, and I realize I'm being very nitpicky, but that's how I critique these strokes. There's a lot to it, and there's a lot to screw up, and when you're screwing up multiple things like that, it's going to be a hard journey for you, break in 9 minutes. So you got to fix a few things. Okay, let's see. What do we have here? Okay, here's a kind of a related question to what we just saw. Morning, Stu. How can I stay flatter in the water when doing the CSS? Well, if you notice what he just did, he just stayed on his side the whole time and never got flat. Something I like to do, just because I like to pull like on my belly and then grab that top arm, right? Almost grabbing down like I'm doing the freestyle. He was out here on his side the whole time doing a freestyle or freestyle catch this way, which wasn't bad. And then he stayed on his bottom, his bottom arm came in here like that and kind of over rotated a little bit. So I personally, after I do the top arm, bottom arm, and then I kick, during the kick, I roll over on my belly. Not quite on my belly. I'm about 45 degrees out. Then I pull that top arm again with that next stroke. I just feel like I feel more balanced in the water versus pulling on my side. I feel weird, like I'm not grabbing the water right. I can get a little deeper, grab some water, pull it, and then push it behind me. That's a good freestyle catch. So if you want to add the freestyle catch in there, I would recommend rolling over just a little bit. And I make, instead of rolling flat on 90, I compromise and make it a 45. And I find that to be a very good glide position. So I hope that answered your question. Do I still do training in Maryland? I haven't followed you for years. Yes. In fact, if you go to heroesoftomorrow.org, you will see our schedule on what we do and what we're all about. Heroes, in fact, I'll type it in here for you. Heroesoftomorrow.org. Oops. Look at that. I misspelled it. Heroes of Tomorrow. Boom. Let's see. Should I go straight into the Navy next year when I graduate, or should I go to university for my associates and join search and rescue for a couple of years? Well, I don't know if you know me, but I'm going to say don't go at 18. Statistically speaking, 18-year-olds don't make it. You can look at previous videos. I get asked this question just about every week, and I say 18-year-olds aren't ready for buds. Now, I'm proven wrong every class because maybe 4 or 5 will graduate buds every class. But what they don't show you, what they don't tell you is that 100 were there before that. So 4 to 5 make it, 100 do not. Teenagers. I remember showing up at buds. I was like, man, this is like high school. I mean, everybody was so young, and I was 22. I was hardly old, but I was it was a complete different mindset. I was like, good Lord. And then by the time we graduated, we had 2, maybe 3 teenagers. Yeah. Out of 28. And we started with 120. And I know we had over 90 teenagers at first. So it's just statistically speaking, they make up a bulk of the attrition rate. So I'm just speaking from experience and statistics. Once again, I'm proven wrong every class. Are you that unicorn that can make it? Go for it. If not, I would say spend a couple of years getting in better shape, finish growing, learn a search and rescue skill. Great idea. Take some medic classes, maybe be an EMT when you go in. That's going to be all useful stuff. Learn a language. When you perform a core exercise, crunch or whatever, do you contract as much as you can, or as if you were about to get punched, or engage just enough to perform that move? I never really thought of it that much. If I'm doing, let's say, a testing exercise, so let's say sit-ups are a test. I am working on a pace, so there's not much thought into how I'm engaging. Now, I try to balance it out, so I'm not only using abs, that I actually use some hip flexors mixed in there. Way you position your seat, your butt to your feet when you're sitting down, right? Your butt and your feet. That angle right there can determine, how much hip flexors you're using, how much abs you're using. The closer your feet are in, you're going to use a lot more abs. The further your feet are away, you're going to use a little more hip flexor. Find that happy spot. Make adjustments in the middle of it. I usually sometimes slide back a little bit just to change the angle. So When I'm doing planks and things like that, or TRX planks or TRX rollouts, I will definitely flex everything like I'm getting punched because it's just so hard. Same way for like the leg tuck. If I'm doing knees, taking my knees to my elbows, hanging on a pull up bar, that requires a little extra effort. Um, I prefer those over in the TRX over just doing sit ups or crunches. However, I still do a few sit ups and crunches and flutter kicks and leg levers just because I like doing them. Um, but I also mix it in a lot with planks and other like TRX push ups and other core activities, lifting weights, obviously. RDLs are great. Farmer walks with one weight in your hand. So many different ways to work the core. It's not just crunches. Do you recommend bodyweight squats for gaining muscle? Yes, I do, among other things. Stuck and eating. You're not going to be big if you don't eat big. So lift big, eat big. Stuck at 8:30 to 8:35 for a 500 warm up. Why do you want to break 8:10? 8:30 is fine. Who cares? Nobody cares that you can swim 8:10. I mean, yeah, is 8:10 better? Sure. I would just keep on doing the 50-50, maybe go to 75-75s or 100 hundreds and work on that pace at a greater distance just to see if that puts you over the edge a little bit. But be honest with you, you're swimming 8:30s, keep it there. That's great. Work on something else. Like if you're put it this way, let's say you're swimming a 8:30, but you are running a 9:45. My advice would be to get that 9:45 down to 6 and not worry about your 8:30. I think your 8:30 is great. Or let's say you're only doing 10 pull-ups. Work on your pull-ups. So you only have so much time per day and energy per day to train. Make sure you're focusing on things that really need to be fixed. So many people who are great swimmers, and I've seen this so many times, that they go to buds thinking, you know what? I suck at running. I'm not a very good lifter, decent at calisthenics, but I might be able to break the Bud swim record. You know what? Nobody cares about you breaking the Bud swim record if you can't run a 4-mile timed run in under 32 minutes. Um, so, in fact, I'm not even sure if records get uh, posted up there permanently if you don't graduate. So let's say a world class swimmer comes in there, blows everybody away on the PST with a 5:30, but doesn't make it past the first week of buds. I don't think that record counts anymore. So focus on what you need to focus on to get better versus trying to make good enough even better. Does that make sense? Nothing wrong with being competitive, and being 8:10 is great, but make sure you're not missing the elephant in the room when you have a 10-minute run, for instance. Uh, Thoughts on the book Breaking Buds? It's all right. I think he's got some good advice in there. Um, his definition of the gray man's a little bit different than mine, but it is what it is. Do you have an article on nutrition for tactical athlete? I do. You can Google that stuff. In fact, there's a whole bunch of stuff in here, and I've done some podcasts on nutrition, interviewing actual PhDs in nutrition that were also Army guys. So go to the Tactical Fitness Report page, podcast page. and scroll down to, let's see, podcast 219. Yep, podcast 219. In fact, you know what? I'll even make it easier for you. Here's the podcast on it. It's really good. Me and Lieutenant Colonel Behringer go after some tactical athlete nutrition. So plenty of information out there with my name on it too, and not my name on it. There's some great nutritionists out there that you should definitely look into. Do you recommend pasta when working out? Sure, I love pasta. In fact, I ate pasta last night. Spaghetti and meatballs. Good stuff. I don't eat it while I'm working out though, running or swimming. I eat it for dinner, for lunch. Doesn't make for an easy during a workout meal. Do you have any tips for getting rid of shin splints? Yeah, man. Guess what? You can Google that. Put my name on it, and you might find an article with some tips. In fact, I'll put it in the description for you. Actually, I've written a couple of articles about it. Another one is the one I did on military.com, and it's about, people with recurrent shin splints, how to work on healing with some balance exercises. Works pretty well. Why did you decide to pursue SEALs? You know what? You should go to my my website and read some articles, because I talk about that in several articles, and just about every one of these live Q&As I've answered that question, it seems like. But to make a long story short, I was at the Naval Academy, wanted to be a pilot. Met some SEALs along the way and some midshipmen that wanted to be SEALs, and I decided that's what I wanted to do. I started working out with them, hanging out with them socially, and I was like, next thing I know, these older guys were making it through SEAL training. That took the impossibility factor out of it. Plus, the Navy SEALs that were stationed at the Naval Academy were people I wanted to be. So, but it's a good one. There's a big story on that whole process of my journey. And it was really all about failure and never quitting, because we all human and we make these mistakes. All right, so you guys read this article. This is a really good article on that whole process of why I decided to go SEALs, even after some initial failures. Because I originally went to the Naval Academy, wanted to be a pilot, Top Gun, and play football. And I did neither. Played rugby and became a SEAL. I had plans and they laughed. So there you go. Let's do another CSS critique, shall we? This is a good one. This gentleman right here, I don't think he wants to be a SEAL, but he is a really good swimmer, and he's just one of my favorite CSS critiques, just because he's a big guy, probably over 230, and is crushing this swim stroke. In fact, I have this one on TikTok as well. And it's probably, for some reason, it's my most viewed video on TikTok. But you can see here, it's got a nice streamline, kicks off the wall. Look at that transition, no loss of momentum. Only thing I would have here is that he probably no need to look backwards like that. Like, he shouldn't be looking at me if I'm filming him. Is it? You should be looking 90 degrees or forward. But this is smooth. Look at that transition. Good streamline. Good kick. It's got a big kick. Probably doesn't need to be that big, but he's got a good whip from it down, from the knee down. I mean, that right there is a 43-second 50. Do the math on that. That's just over 710, 720. It's a really good one. See how he kind of rolls over about 45-degree angle, like I mentioned? Doesn't stay on his side the whole time. Good turnaround, too. That was fast. Yeah, this is smooth. I like this one. This is good. Absolutely. Let's see. Any other questions? All right. I don't see any. If you got them, send them. If I missed them, post them up again, because scrolling down. Yep, looks like I got them all. All right, I'll show another one. Trying to think if this is a good one or not. I don't think it is. So there may be some things to actually critique on this one. Hopefully you guys saw that last one. Didn't check to see if you did. All right, let's see. Kick off the wall. All right, let me see what that wall looked like. I think he might have done too many dolphin kicks in here. That's not bad. Wasn't stopping him. A little awkward coming up, probably a little too deep. So there he had to see how he had to kind of kick to come up to the surface. Don't want to be that deep underwater. So top arm, bottom arm, kick and glide. It's got the sequence down. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, pull. He rolls over a little bit. You can see how he kind of rolls over just to get that top arm pull in. Could be a little faster. I think what happens here is he just jumps right into that dolphin kick when he could just be gliding. Yeah, something's up with his kick making those splashes like that. Yeah, I would definitely fix that kick a little bit because it's not getting you very far every time you kick. You might be getting a yard out of it. So yeah, check out the video that I posted earlier about fix your kick, and that should help you. You're just going to do some kickboard drills and things like that. Whew. All right. So the rest of this week, we're in our lift week. So this is our once every 4 weeks we do just a lift, and the way a lift in the calisthenics and cardio cycle really works is we warm up with calisthenics and then we do some lifting and we shorten our distance of running a little bit and just focus on speed, pace. So today was like 2.5 miles of running for those who lifted, and I think some of the guys that decided to run probably put it into the 6-7 minute mile total, with some intervals and big hills and all that. But the way it looks is we warm up with cows and then we do some lifts, then we mix in some 800s, and then follow it off with a swim with fins. That's our leg day. Tomorrow's going to be a mobility day. Those are always great. I have found that over the years of adding this mobility day, it is instrumental and extremely helpful with people who are having a hard time with treading. And even some of the other skills, involved in drown proofing, just having your shoulders behind your back, feet together, and being able to do dolphin kicks, all that is a function of your ability to do hips, hip mobility, knees, ankles, lower back, hamstring flexibility. All of that comes into play when you're doing some of those water skills. So that's why I love the mobility day, not only as a recovery day, but it is a prep for getting better at treading, especially egg beater. Most people who can't do the egg beater can't get into the position to do an egg beater because their knees are too tight, their hips are too tight, ankles don't go that way. So it's a mobility issue with those 3 joints. So we really have been focusing on that. And I'm watching everybody's egg beater improve, or not only improve, just be able to accomplish the egg beater kick, period. So that is what we do tomorrow. A lot of swimming and skills and stuff like that. And then Thursday's an upper body day. Friday's a lower body day, but it's more of a cardio lift combo where we're going to ruck, soft sand, swim with fins, and do a little lift either before the swim or after the swim just to top it off. And then Saturday's another probably, I can't remember what we have it set up. I think we may make it a fun little like Murph type workout with some sandbags or weight vests, something like that. All right, so we got a few questions during that explanation of our training week. And it's just basically a split routine, upper body, lower body split with some cardio based programming in there and mobility. When you ruck on leg days, how many miles do you typically do? It depends. I would say we typically do 3 to 4, but on the weekends, if we have a leg day on Friday or Saturday, we may do 5 to 6. Some guys go a little bit more, especially if they're going Army, and they may do a 10 to 12. They may progress up to a 10 to 12 mile ruck. Some guys ruck to the hill and then do a bunch of hills, so they can accumulate up to 10 miles as well on that. So it really kind of depends on where you're going after you leave here. If you're going Army, you're definitely, or Marine Corps, you definitely want to put in some miles. Buds is not heavy mileage rucking. You're going to run and swim with fins more than you are going to ruck. You will ruck, just not that much. What was at what age was your peak fitness? Good question. I would say probably there was a span. I mean, I did really well in my teens growing up and seeing good progress in training. Making sports teams and, things like that. But I would say I didn't really peak until I was probably between the ages of 25 to 35, with 30 being kind of a broken stage. There was a part of that decade where I just pushed too hard and I broke, but then I was able to rebuild myself. And then by 35, I was back up to a really good cardiovascular peak. Though when I was 25, I could double, bench press twice my body weight at, 185. I could maybe 190. Yeah. And then I could, 2.5 body weight squat deadlifts. Did that as a teen. So it just depends. Over the years, I've peaked physically in strength and power early in my teens and early 20s. And then I peaked in cardiovascular and muscle stamina later in my 20s and mid 30s. Now, running has gotten a little slower for me at 53, but I still run. That's the good news. That's probably my only real weakness right now. I'm swimming just as fast as I was. 8-minute 500s are pretty easy. Hit a 7:30 a couple weeks ago. PTs are good. I can do a Murph 100, 200, 300 in 5 sets. So calisthenics are good. Bodyweight bench press, just did 15 of 205 yesterday. So feel pretty good with that. 20 pull-ups. But I've done more in my 20s, that's for sure. Is treading a 10-pound dive brick good for buds? Yes, with fins. You will be treading weight with a pair of scuba fins in second phase. However, without fins, you won't be holding any weight during the tread test. What are your thoughts on jujitsu? Yeah, it's great. Great form of martial arts. If you like it, do it. However, I will say this, most guys that you see that are doing it, especially SEALs, they didn't really pick it up until after buds. Some picked it up before, but my days jujitsu wasn't popular, so it became popular when we were SEALs, and we even had the Gracies come show us stuff, at the SEAL teams, and it was really starting to take off in the mid 90s. But I would say you have to be careful with any martial arts prior to buds because a lot of people get injured 6 months out to a point where it either delays their ship date or it completely disqualifies them because they need surgery or they need a year off to recover from surgery. There's a lot of things you probably don't want to do about 6 months out prior to buds that could hurt you and hurt your chances of being qualified to go. Jiu-jitsu is just one of many. I mean, boxing, MMA, uh, contact sports, uh, even riding a bicycle, on the street like a triathlete. I would do a stationary bike versus a road bike, 6 months out, because I've just seen people get in crashes and either die, literally, or get hurt so bad that they need surgery, and that either disqualifies them or delays them significantly. So you just do it, but be careful. I don't like fasting, but you know, if you don't mind, I have another question. How do you manage the cold for extended period of time? Uh, Stay moving, keep moving. We train outside in the winter now for 2 hours, below freezing. We dress well, and we are moving constantly to stay warm. Whether we're lifting or we're doing calisthenics, we will throw in some form of movement like running or rucking just to stay warm. So it's a fine line between doing too much where you sweat when you're cold. That really will decrease your ability to stay outside for longer because then that sweat gets cold on you and it's not a good combo. But you got to do just enough to stay warm without breaking a sweat. That's where the magic sets in. And the only way to get good at that is to practice it. And your pace, your layering situation, how to dress. All those things can be very helpful in you learning how to manage that. Takes practice. To prepare for CEODD, I average swim 1,000 yards at least every day, 500 yards with fins, 500 yards slick in the pool, then 5 minutes treading. What should the average time in the pool be? I personally don't recommend swimming with fins every day. I've seen a lot of people get knee tendonitis doing that. That's why I limit my swimming with fins only on leg day. Um, That's just something I've done, or on a big cardio day. So I may do fins 3 days a week max. And then all the other days are a combination of treading, swimming, drown proofing. But yeah, anywhere between 45 to 60 minutes in the pool is legit for any job that's going to require um, diving or special ops type swimming/diving. Most people associate buds with being cold and wet. Yeah, I would associate buds with cold and wet. Any points during selection where it was unbearably hot? There are heat casualties in the summer. I mean, people do get hot in the summer, and one of the beautiful things about being in Southern California is the water is always cold. Even in the heat of the summer, I think the water may hit 70 degrees, which, if you've been in a pool, most pools aren't even set at 70 degrees because that's too cold for most swimmers. Most of them are set at like 78 or 80. Um, so, you can always put them in the water and actually cool down. And that's a good way to do it. It's a good way to cool down because, one, half of fatigue is body heat. And then if it gets worse than that, it becomes, a casualty where you're either heat stroke, heat exhaustion, those type of things, which it becomes really dangerous. But yes, it happens. Hydration and electrolytes always needed. Sometimes it's humid out in Southern California, depending on what the winds are blowing from the ocean, or it's arid if the winds are blowing from the desert. So regardless, there may be times when you don't think you're sweating because you're not. As soon as you sweat, it evaporates. It's so arid. So, um, you have to be on top of that and look for sweat stains and just constantly hydrate and throw in some electrolytes too, especially if you know it's hot and you're out there doing stuff. But yes, it can happen. Summers are not overly hot, but they can be, especially when you're doing nothing but moving all day. All right. So that's all my videos that I have. Um, I'm going to share one more thing with you, and we're going to shut it down. If you guys have any more questions, you can go to StuSmithFitness.com. But as we started out this show, I was talking about today being June 28th, and this date, 2005, Operation Red Wings had a helicopter get blown up from out of the sky, killing a bunch of Navy SEALs and its Army helicopter crew. So remember these names, keep them in your prayers, and their family in your prayers, and their prayers. So, all right, I'm ending with that, folks. You guys have questions and I missed them, get them back to me, and I will answer them by either DM or comments below in this video. Just cut and paste your question and send them to me. All right, till next week. Have a good one.